Hi everyone and welcome to Nordnet Talks. I'm Joakim Bornold and I'm the economist here in the Stockholm office, and today we have a very special guest with us, and that is Rob Powell, investment strategist at BlackRock. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself to start with, and BlackRock perhaps.
So I'm an investment strategist focusing on thematic investing, and I sit within the iShares business.
Okay.
Which is a part of BlackRock, and BlackRock is the largest asset manager in the world. We have assets of over $5 trillion at the last count.
5 trillion.
It's a lot.
That's
it's
a lot.
Yeah, so it's larger than the GDPs of lots of countries in Europe, most countries in fact. So we really do have quite a bit of scale.
Yes, but today we're not going to talk about those 5 trillions. It's exciting, but we're going to talk about megatrends.
New themes.
Yes. Yeah. Tell me about it.
So maybe we should start by saying what we think a megatrend actually is. So I think in the investment profession, we're somewhat obsessed normally with looking at things which are going to provide us returns over 1 and 3 years. Megatrends or megatrend investing is all about tapping into long-term drivers of change. So we're looking beyond the 1 and 3 year view, and we're saying what's going to be driving change to investment, but also to the global socio-economic and political environment for 20 or 30 years, rather than that 1 and 3 year period.
And you have found some.
We found some. So yeah. So as BlackRock, obviously with the scale that we have lots of very clever people thinking about what's going to be driving investment returns for the long term, and also driving change generally. So we have these 5 megatrends that we see being the key things that are going to be driving that change over the long term.
Okay.
Should we go through them, or should we?
Absolutely.
I mean, so the first one. I mean, so these will all be things I think that lots that we read about in the papers and we see in the press all the time. These are things that should be front of mind for all of us, really. So the first is shifting economic power. So this is the change in power base away from the US and Europe and more towards the emerging markets, so China and India. So if we think about the US's share of global GDP, so economic growth effectively, since 1998, its share of that total has gone down every single year since 1998, apart from one. China's at the same time has gone up every single year. So you can really see the increasing importance of the emerging markets.
So that would be a huge change in balance between the old world and the new one.
Exactly, and investment portfolios are going to have to develop to potentially benefit from that.
Okay.
So the second one is climate change and resource scarcity, which I think in Sweden and Scandinavia in general, you're maybe somewhere ahead of us or the rest of the world in terms of clean energy sources and thinking about how to power your lives and your homes in a different way, in a non-traditional way. So when I say the traditional way, I mean fossil fuels really. And when we think about fossil fuel supply, so oil in particular, BP, so British Petroleum, one of the largest oil producers in the world, they believe that the last drop of oil is going to come out of the ground 50 years from now.
Okay. So
you can see that reduction in the traditional source is something we're going to have to change to actually accommodate in our lives.
Yeah.
The third one is demographics and social change. So this one I think we read about a huge amount.
Yes.
In the papers. You know, we're always hearing about the increasing number of old versus the young.
Yes.
In particular.
It's a big thing in Sweden as well. So.
And I think everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's actually a global theme as well. So that we're interested in these kind of themes playing out not just in Europe and the US, which they're obviously very important in, but also in the emerging markets. So just to give an example of demographic change in China, there's currently 20 million people over the age of 80 in China. So obviously I think that's about double the population of Sweden, which is around 10 million people. By 2050, the UN thinks there's going to be 120 million people over the age of 80 in China alone.
That's amazing.
Which is ridiculous.
It is.
But this also captures, the rise of millennials as a consumer class, and those changes in demographics. So very long-term shifts that we want to tap into in our investment portfolios.
Okay.
The fourth one is technological breakthrough.
Yes.
Another thing which I think we see all over the place.
Yes.
The fact that we can stand here and talk with a screen and actually use technology to really enhance how we work, how we live.
And the fact that I can't live without my
The fact
iPhone.
that you can't live without your iPhone. You know, we're completely reliant on new tech now.
Yes.
But it's not just our own lives, it's actually within our work lives as well, where this is going to be a huge theme. So if you think about all of the kids who are starting school, so I think in the UK we start at 4 or 5, and all of those kids globally, those 4 to 5 year olds, in 16 years time, so when they're 21 and they're just starting work, 65% of them, so 6 out of 10, will have jobs that don't currently exist today because technology will have replaced the existing workforce. So robots and things like that will be in the workforce doing the low-skilled jobs, and we'll have to think of new ways to employ those young people.
What will they be working with? What will my two daughters
It's scary, it's scary, isn't it? But I think it's more, it's that we're going to have to develop education which is going to be more relevant for them in future, and maybe some of the less exciting lines of work won't be relevant anymore because a robot can do it. So there'll be new opportunities.
Of course, that's a good thing as well.
Oh yeah. So I think
job out. Interesting job in.
Increasing productivity means more potential for young people.
Yes.
And the final one is rapid urbanization. So this is all about people moving from the countryside into the cities in terms of where they live, and the challenges that provides. So the UN believes that by 2030, 2/3 of the global population is going to live in cities, which is a massive increase from where we are today.
Okay.
And that's going to provide challenges. And being well aligned to those changes within investment portfolios can be very positive. So these are the things that we see being the long-term drivers in investment markets, but also in just the way we live globally for the next 30 or 40 years.
Yes. I think investing in themes like this is very interesting. So how do you make money out of this?
I mean, that is the key question, right? I think first off, we provide funds, so we are doing some of the heavy lifting for you. So in the past, if you think about how you would have accessed these themes, if you believe in demographics and social change, if you believe in that theme that people are getting older and you want to benefit from it, you would have to think about which kinds of companies fit within that theme. So you can think off the top of your head about the kinds of companies that would do that, but it's quite hard to come up with a very developed list on your own.
Yes.
So I think what used to happen in the past was that if you had scale, so if you had lots of people working on an idea, or you had lots of money, so you could pay people to think about how to access an idea, you could access things like aging population. But today, because we have such better data and we can actually look at vast numbers of companies in a lot of detail, we can actually classify those companies, which means we can produce in one fund at a very low cost access to these kinds of trends through theme funds. So I'd say we wouldn't actually ever launch a fund or provide an investment at this level of the trend. Because if you think about demographics and social change, to use the example that we spoke of before, within that long-term trend you have the population is aging. You also have the fact that millennials are becoming increasingly important in terms of how they consume. You have the change in consumer behavior in the Chinese middle classes. So if we had an investment product that focused on just this, it would be pretty meaningless because it would capture too much. So you'd be buying all the stocks.
Yes.
But what we do is we say, let's think about something a bit more specific that sits within it, like aging population or like millennials, and let's provide an exposure or a fund which can help you tap into and help you benefit from the long-term trend.
Okay, interesting. Anything else we should know about the mega trends?
Just that this isn't really a new thing. So I think people have been thinking about mega trends forever.
Yep.
So they're constantly evolving. That's the point that I would get across, that this isn't just like we're putting a stake in the ground and saying these are the 5 trends now that aren't going to change for the next 30 years. These are going to change and these are going to develop. as new technologies come in. And it's all about being flexible. But we think that these are some of the most important long-term trends at the moment.
Yeah. And your product is on the Nordnet platform, so if
Yep.
you'd like to invest in them, you can do that within all the Nordic countries, I guess. So thank you so much, Rob, for visiting us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.